Hi everyone, Amber here from Sew Majestic. Welcome back to my channel. Today is our last Marathon Society sewing marathon of the year, and it is holiday themed. If you celebrate Christmas, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, whatever holiday you celebrate, I hope you're having a great time. And if you don't celebrate, I'm hoping that you still may appreciate the project and could use it not just for the holidays. So today I have sewn up quite a large gift bag. It is a drawstring pouch. I used 5 fat quarters, actually about 4 1/4. Each side, so both exteriors took 2 fat quarters. The interior took 2 fat quarters. And then I used a 5th fat quarter just to make my drawstring channel. I used some paracord. And all of this is really affordable. It is a reusable holiday bag. You could use this as a gift bag, or you could use this for birthdays, or a really nice project bag. I was talking about how if you crochet or knit, you could put stuff in this as well. And so when you've pulled the drawstring, it closes it up. If I was saying if you want to use a fancy ribbon, you could tie a nice bow. And I box the bottoms to give it a little bit more stability. It's really a good beginner project. It doesn't use any interfacing. I think it's really affordable. All the fat quarters I used from Walmart. The paracord was either from Dollar Tree or Michael's. So it's a very affordable project and a great project for beginners. I hope you're enjoying the marathon. If you have not already, I would love if you subscribe to my channel. It does help my channel grow. I appreciate it so much. Thank you again, and happy holidays to any of you and all of you who celebrate. Enjoy. All right, here I have everything laid out. I have 5 fat quarters. They're just wrapped a little bit differently. All of them are from Walmart. I believe the buffalo plaid, I just recently bought them, but the poinsettia, I believe, are from last year. So I'm going to use 2 for the exterior, 2 for the lining, and 1 that I'm going to run the drawstring through. This is paracord, and I believe this one either came from Michael's or Dollar Tree. Not quite sure for that one. And as far as tools and materials, you don't really need too much. I'm going to be using this candy cane thread. It's one of the few times a year that I have fabrics that match this. It's the red, white, and green variegated from Wizardry Stitchery, and I'm using Tex 35 in my domestic. I use that in both my top and bobbin. I'm going to use an 80-12 universal needle, and then I have a pair of snips, 2 different marking pens, a blue one and chalk, a seam ripper stiletto combo, a lighter to singe the edges of the paracord, a ruler, and plenty of clips. All right, so the first thing I want to do is open up my fat quarters. I think I'm going to use the buffalo plaid for the outside and the poinsettias for the lining. And I want to see if any of these have the selvage included, because these say they're 18 by 21. That's a typical size for a fat quarter. Same thing for this. But sometimes they have the selvage, and they may not be the exact same shape. And I'm excited to make a reusable gift bag. This is obviously Christmas themed, but you could use this for any holiday, birthday. You could even use this method and make like a project bag. It doesn't necessarily have to be a gift bag. This is really stuck on. All right, so I think off camera, I'm going to pull the rest of this. You can see it's really stuck on because it's been stored for a while. I want to make sure I get all of that off. All right, you can probably see it is a little bit wet here. I actually had to wet it to get the rest of the sticker off. And you can also see that this one does have a selvage on the side. So what I'm going to do off camera is I'm going to open one more of the buffalo plaid and one more of the poinsettia. I decided to use the buffalo plaid on the exterior because this has the white. So I'm afraid that if I use on the exterior, this is so dark, you might see it coming through. This one is going to be for the channel for our cord. So I'm not opening or needing this one yet. So I am going to open these other two and cut them down to make sure they're all the exact same size. All right, so now I have them all cut to size. The selvage is trimmed off. I have my two interiors, my two exteriors. Probably would look a lot nicer if I ironed them. I'm not interfacing them because I want this to just be something that's really affordable and also like squishy that will adapt to whatever you put in it. I am going to make it a boxed bottom just so it has more of like a base. So that is what I'm going to do next. I think I'm going to do a 2-inch box bottom. So I have this ruler here and I'm just going to line it up with the 2-inch mark. And you could do this with any ruler. You could make it as big as a box bottom or as small as you want. I just think 2 inches is a pretty good size in comparison to the 18 inches tall, 21 inches long. So for the buffalo plaid, since it's darker, this one on the white, I use my blue water soluble. And on this one, I have my chalk pen. And that way I'll be able to see it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark my bottom 4 corners, or 8 corners, I guess. The bottom 4 right and the bottom 4 left. If you're using directional fabric, make sure you have it going the correct way. Okay, and so now once you have all 4 of your box corners marked out, you are going to cut out those corners. And I prefer to do all of them at once. That way I'm not, doing one side then the next. I'll have both exterior and interior ready to go. Right, so I'm going to cut the rest of them. All right, so I have cut out all the box corners now. Those are all set to go. The other thing I did off camera is I opened up my 3rd fat quarter and I cut the strip to about 20 inches long, because if I'm looking at the top, these are approximately 21 inches long. So I personally like mine a little bit shorter for the drawstring channel. Some people cut it to the width and that works perfectly fine as well. So I have cut 2 strips, because we are going to fold them in half. And we need 1 for each side. What I've also did, and I've cut them at 2.5 inches wide, 20 inches long. I've marked a 1/2 inch mark with chalk on the back, because before we fold them in half, that's going to leave a raw edge and we don't want that to fray. So what we're going to do is just fold this down at the 1/2 inch mark. You could do this smaller amount, like 1/4 inch if you want. It's personal preference. I just like having a little bit more fabric to work with. So I'm going to fold this down here. And again, this is just so we don't have the raw edge at the drawstring channel. And I'm going to do the same for this strip here. And I'm going to bring it to the machine and just top stitch down the edge at about 1/4 of an inch. Normally I do 1/8 of an inch, but because I folded it so much under, I don't want this like flopping back out. So I'm going to do a wider top stitch. If you only folded it under by 1/4, then you can do the smaller ones. Okay, so I have top stitch down each side, and that's going to leave it so we have a nice finish edge. All right, and I decided that my poinsettias are going to be my lining, so I'm moving them out of the way. I want to do a couple things. I want to fold this in half, hot dog style, so lengthwise, and then I'm going to line up the edges to mark my center. Now, if you wanted, you could baste stitch this closed, wrong sides together. I'm just doing this to save time. So I'm marking my center on both sides so I know when I'm lining this up that I have it correct. And same thing over here. So we're going to be basting these on to our exterior. So again, we're folding it hot dog style, wrong sides together. So if you wanted, you could baste stitch that. I'm just going to clip it all into place. You know, with these gift bags, I want them to be quick. So that's why I'm doing it more as like a time-saving measure. And it doesn't need to be so perfect because it's going to be the drawstring channel. It's going to get scrunched up. But if you want, you could press these, you could baste them, whatever way works best for you. So now that I have those two marked, I'm going to take one of my exteriors. The box corners are at the bottom. So along the top, I'm folding this to find my center. And I love chalk because it just can wipe it off. If it's a little bit difficult, you can use a like a wet rag or like a baby wipe. All right, so now that I have my center here, I'm going to take one of these. Again, I have my centers of here matched. So I'm just going to line them up, line it up with my center here, and flip. And so now I can just follow this out. And I'm lining up the raw edge of my tube with the top raw edge of my exterior of the gift bag. And this is why I didn't baste it, because I'm clipping all the way across anyways, and I'm going to baste this into place. I really just didn't want to have to baste things twice. And follow it out along this side as well. And then clipping at the end. Right, off camera, I'm going to do the same exact thing for my other exterior side and tube. And then I'm going to take it to the machine and I am going to base stitch at 1/8 of an inch, back stitching at the beginning and the end of my drawstring tube. All right, so I have base stitched my channel for the drawstring along the top. So now I'm going to put these right sides together. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to, it's so large, I'm going to have to like maneuver this. But I am going to clip along all three sides, the left side, the right side, and the bottom. Once you have them, I'm going to start like on the left and just work my way around. Once you have them all clipped, we are going to bring it to the machine and stitch along all three sides. We're not leaving a turning hole because this is our exterior. fabric. So we are going to stitch around all 3 sides. So back stitch at the beginning and the end here, then along the bottom, and then along the last side. I am going to use a 3/8 seam allowance. That is my preferred seam allowance. The nice thing is that you can adjust this bag to any size that you want. So if you wanted to make this smaller or larger, you could, depending on the object that you plan on fitting inside. So you can adjust your seam allowance. If you prefer a 1/2 inch, use a 1/2 inch. If you prefer 1/4 inch, use that. Or if you are using the metric system. All right. So now that I have it clipped, I'm going to bring it and stitch down the right hand side, the bottom, and the left, back stitching at the beginning and the end of each side. All right, and for this next part, I'm boxing the bottom corner. So I've sewed along both sides and the bottom here. So I'm just going to show it at my machine just because it's easier. So here's my bottom, and I'm just gently tugging it apart. I am matching up my seams. You can nest them or you can butterfly them open. I'm going to butterfly them open, but either way works. Just make sure that if you are nesting them, like turning one side one way and the opposite the other, it matches up for the other side. And I'm just clipping it across. And now I'm just going to sew at that 3/8 seam allowance along here, and I'm going to do it for the other box corner as well. All right, so I have my exterior all boxed. I am going to set it aside for the moment, and I'm going to repeat the process for my lining. The only exception is I need to leave a turning hole. And for this, I don't want to leave my turning hole in the bottom because I don't want, whatever item to sit on it have that seam. So again, I'm putting them right side together. I'm going to leave my turning hole in the side here. So what I'm going to do is start clipping at the top, just like what we did for the exterior. And I'm going to put about 2 clips. And then I'm going to leave about, 6-inch gap. You could probably leave smaller since we didn't interface this. And I'm going to remember not to sew this all the way down. So when I do sew this, I'm going to start at the top, back stitch, and come to this clip and back stitch here. Leave this opening and then start again here, back stitching and continuing all the way around. If I was making this as a purse, I would start with my 3/8 inch seam allowance and then increase my seam allowance to a 1/2 inch as I'm going, just so that way the lining sits better inside. You can do that, but because this is a gift bag and it's just going to be like, there's no interfacing, I don't have to worry so much about a bulky like lining or anything like that, that you can just keep the same seam allowance if you want. So I'm going to clip the rest of this off camera and sew it. So the same exact way, just leaving our turning hole here on the left. And I'm going to box the corners as well. All right, so I have just finished sewing up the sides, the bottom, and boxing the corners and leaving my turning hole. So I'm going to leave this wrong side facing out. I need my exterior, and I have turned this so it's right sides facing out. And I'm going to put my exterior inside of my lining. And I'm going to match up the seams on the sides. All right, I apologize. I had to restart the video. So I am clipping where the seams are. You can nest them or butterfly them open. My personal preference is to nest, and you want to make sure that your tube for the drawstring cord is between the fabrics. You don't want that sticking up. And I'm coming around to the other side, matching up my seams. Just trying to butterfly them open. There we go. And we have the centers marked of the exterior, but I didn't do it for the lining. If you did, you can match them, or as long as your seam allowance is accurate, it should match up perfectly. And mine seems to be doing that. So now I'm just going to clip all the way around. And we have the turning hole in the side, so we don't have to worry about leaving a turning hole here. All right, and as you can see, it matches up nicely. So now I'm going to bring this to the machine, and I am going to stitch all the way around. We're going to sew all the way around that circle, back stitching at the beginning and the end, and that is going to attach our lining to our exterior. All right, so I'm still at my sewing machine. I sewed all the way around. So now I have my turning hole here, and I'm just going to reach in and turn it. I left a large turning hole, even though it's not interfaced. Okay, perfect. So now as it comes through, I'm going to push my lining into the interior. Perfect. And you will see that the drawstring part is popping up, which is exactly what we want. So if you want, you could clip this here. I am just going to top stitch it by pulling this out. Maybe I'll put a clip here just because there's no drawstring channel right there. But for the rest of it, as long as I'm going along and using my hands to straighten it out, it will push that lining inside. And I like top stitching always before turning or closing up my turning hole, just in case I need to reach inside to fix anything. So I am going to just start on an edge, like a corner here, and top stitch all the way around, making sure that the drawstring channel is pointed towards my right. That's popped up. Okay, so I have just finished top stitching around, and it turned out great. I was able to kind of straighten it as I was going, as I was sewing. So now that just leaves our turning hole, and that is inside. And I just put my 2 fingers in and kind of give a little tug, and it helps the seam allowance fold in. And I am just going to clip. You could hand sew this. I always just machine sew. I hate hand stitching. It's inside. I find that it's not really going to show. I'm using colors that match. Oh, I didn't clip that on both sides. And I'm just going to backstitch the beginning and the end, and I sew at the 1/8 seam allowance, just very close to the edge to close it up. Okay, so now that turning hole is closed, I'm going to take it back to the table to put in the drawstring. All right, so I have my gift bag here. It's quite large. I'm really excited about it. I have top stitch, everything looks great. Our final step is to add the drawstring cord. So I have cut 2 at approximately 50 inches. So I'm going to start on one side. I have just added a safety pin. If you have a bodkin or something that would make it easier. Also, I did a large drawstring channel, so it's not quite so tight that it's being pushed through, so that really helps. I probably should have said that when I made it to do a larger size. The other thing is I'm using cord, but if you wanted to make this, I don't want to say fancy, but even more decorative, you could use like a bigger ribbon, so that way when you tie this at the end, you could get like a nice bow. So you could really like dress this up if you wanted. Okay, and I'm just going to work my way around. I've come through this one side. There we go. And I want to make sure I'm not pulling it out the other side. Okay. And I like leaving this little opening. I feel like it makes it easier to thread, or, you know, some people go right to the end, and that works too. It's very like a personal preference. Right, and this is coming out almost. Perfect. So now what I'm going to do, so this does not get pulled through on accident, I am going to just knot it. If you wanted to use one of the little button things that you kind of like, I don't know the name for it, but where you push it and it tightens it, you could use that. And you can actually just leave it like this if you want. Pull it tight and tie this as a bow if you wanted. What I'm going to do or like to do is, if you want strings on both sides, I'm going to repeat the same exact step for this one here, just starting on the opposite side. So that one started over here. This one, I'm going to start on this side. So this is also another personal preference of how you want this to tie. If you want like a big elaborate bow with a ribbon, I might just do it on one side. But I'm not sure if I'm going to use this for a gift this year, or even just to like store stuff. So I'm going to do it both ways just in case. And I really love this, that cuts down on wrapping paper and waste, can be reused. If you had an embroidery machine, you could even like embroider someone's name on it, or even a Cricut machine and put like heat transfer vinyl. There's so much stuff that you could use from this. These also make great like project bags if you are into knitting or crocheting. I made this one so big that I think it will fit my whole cross stitch collection in it. So that's another option as well. Great, I just made it back to the end, taking off my pin. I am going to knot this one here. And this is just so that they don't accidentally like come undone. So now you have your strings on both sides. You can pull it and you have a nice drawstring gift bag. And with that box bottom, it makes it so it sits really flat depending on your item. You could do that, choose to do that or not, but I really like adding that on. All right, so we have just finished up this giant gift bag. I am so excited. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to use it this year, or I might just honestly put all my cross stitching in it because it fits so nicely, and then I could just leave it near the couch and it would look better than just spread out on my coffee table. So again, I really hope you enjoy the tutorial. Let me know in the comments. I tried to do something that was fun and affordable. I hope you are enjoying the rest of the marathon today. Again, happy holidays if you celebrate, and if you don't, I hope that you can still enjoy the tutorial and use it for something useful. See you next time. Bye.